The federal government is conducting an investigation to determine why this wreck occurred, this crash occurred. We await that. And certainly we'll be interested in seeing what is going on. Look, the president called me and said, anything you need. I have not called him back after that conversation. I will not hesitate to do that if we're seeing a problem or anything, but I'm not seeing it.
That was Ohio Governor and little bitty man Mike DeWine proudly rejecting President Joe Biden's offer of federal aid to help address a toxic train wreck in East Palestine, Ohio. Republicans' temper tantrum over this environmental disaster isn't just cynical, it's actually threatening Ohioans' lives. That was too much for one Fox News commentator. Take a look.
But they give all kinds of money for hurricanes and floods. Why isn't there federal money now for these people to move?
Well, there should be, but Governor DeWine has to ask FEMA to come in, and he hasn't done it yet. Maybe he thinks it's not necessary, but
I don't think you should be thinking that unless he's a scientist.
Listen, no one said Jeanine Pirro knew anything about how the government works, but this back and forth should be a red flag for Republicans. East Palestine is prime GOP territory. It voted almost 3-1 for Donald Trump. Now its 5,000 residents have been exposed to toxic fumes and heavy metals. Their water may not be safe, and now their Republican governor is blocking attempts to help. Instead, Republicans are turning this whole crisis into a publicity stunt. Congressman Jim Jordan snarked on Twitter that, quote, more than a dozen trains have derailed this year. That sounds scary, until you realize that over 1,700 train derailments happen every year. So comparatively, 2023 has been pretty calm so far, except for, that huge chemical explosion. And here's a little history for the Republicans. Way back in 2015, then President Barack Obama made a new federal rule requiring trains carrying hazardous material to use special brakes called ECP brakes. In 2018, new President Donald Trump rescinded that rule at the urging of, you guessed it, railroad company lobbyists. So as it turns out, trains need brakes to stop. Democrats said, hey, put brakes on your trains, guys. And the industry did, making major accidents decline in the process. Then Republicans said, hey, take those brakes off your trains and spend that money on share buybacks instead. Then a train full of vinyl chloride poisoned an Ohio community. But would the brakes have helped a massive derailment like what we saw in East Palestine? Yeah. According to the National Transportation Safety Board, those are the people who investigate train accidents, the East Palestine disaster would have been much less severe if the train had been equipped with ECB brakes. But hey, at least some executives got richer. So, of course, the Republican response was to maturely take responsibility for this accident, right? Wrong. In fact, Marjorie Taylor Greene took to Fox News to compare the danger of a massive chemical spill to the wind industry's war on whales? I don't know. You're going to have to figure this clip out yourself.
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know why AOC isn't dressed in white and crying for the dead whales that keep washing on the beach from wind farms that are being placed all over the ocean. And people are calling the alarms over how this is not only killing unknown thousands of bird species, but also causing whales to beach themselves at record numbers.
I don't quite know what to say to that. But after she was done ranting about whales, Greene finally finished the long walk to her point. She claimed, against the publicly available evidence, that actually Republicans did demand more regulations on railroads. It was just those big, bad, small government Democrats who stopped them.
And now thousands of people, birds, animals, they're all sick, and we don't know the consequences of this horrible accident in East Palestine. But we have people like Ilhan Omar. She wants to, crack down on corporate greed when it comes to rails and the privately owned sections of rails. But really what we have to do is we have to make sure that our rails are safe. Democrats passed a $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, and only $5 billion went towards rail safety.
Marjorie is really hoping that you don't remember how Republicans threatened to kill Joe Biden's infrastructure bill without major cuts. And among those cuts, a lot of the money dedicated to railroad safety. And if Republicans really care about railroads, they can pass that supplemental spending right now. I'll wait. From blocking the money to improve railroad safety to stripping out safety regulations designed to prevent disasters just like this, Republicans have their fingerprints all over the tragedy in East Palestine. What we haven't heard from them is any kind of solution. And as Governor DeWine made clear, he isn't even taking Joe Biden's phone calls. And anyone expecting the private sector to step up got a rude awakening. On Wednesday evening, executives from Norfolk Southern, that's the company responsible for the accident, announced they were canceling their previously promised community meeting. As it turns out, Norfolk Southern is suddenly very interested in staying very quiet. Unfortunately, Joe Biden's hands are tied unless Ohio's Republicans actually accept his help. Until then, thousands of people will risk sickness and long-term health problems, all because of Republican stubbornness. It's up to Democrats to make sure the American people understand just how dangerous the GOP truly is. If you made it to the end, thanks so much for watching. Please leave a like and consider subscribing. And leave a comment below so you can let me know what I should cover next.